I want you to look at this graph. This represents the share of unemployed Americans who are entering the workforce. Currently, we sit at 10.6%, just down from a high of 13.3% last June. We haven't seen levels like this in recent history. Gen Z is entering the toughest job market in almost 40 years. And with most employers not wanting to work with Gen Z, alongside AI being projected to cut almost half of entry-level jobs within 5 years, is Gen Z just going to end up with a career of dead-end jobs? The answer to that isn't yes or no, and it depends on something that most people miss entirely. And in this video, we're going to uncover how AI is going to play boogeyman for future entry-level work, why we're currently seeing entry-level positions require 3+ years of experience, how degreeflation changed entry-level work requirements. But firstly, how none of this would have happened if it wasn't for one moment in 1981. And once you see how these four connect, the entire job market starts to make a whole lot more sense. This all happened because the PATCO strikes on March 3rd in 1980. Where over 13,000 air traffic controllers of the federal workforce walked off the job demanding better pay, shorter hours, and safer working conditions. And at this time, it looked like just another labor dispute. But in actuality, it quietly changed the workforce and how companies treat their workers forever. Because Ronald Reagan did this.
And if they do not report for work within 48 hours, they have forfeited their jobs and will be terminated. End of statement.
And on August 5th, more than 11,000 federal workers were fired and banned from ever working in the federal government again. This is the first domino on why companies don't invest in training workers today. Because behind this moment was a bigger shift across the economy. A new idea started taking over, pushed by economists like Milton Friedman, arguing that companies' main responsibility was no longer its workers, but maximizing profits for shareholders. And that changed everything. Training workers became a cost. Developing employees was seen as too slow, and long-term careers were no longer efficient. So instead of building talent from entry-level positions, companies started expecting workers to show up already trained, or outsource that labor entirely. This is why companies now expect you to already have experience. And that is where the problem begins. Because when companies stop investing in entry-level workers, entry-level positions don't stay entry-level anymore. That's how we ended up with something called degreeflation. From the 1930s to the 1980s, we see a substantial increase in the number of people that have obtained a bachelor's degree, going from 48,622 per year to almost 1 million per year in a 50-year time span. More education seemed like a good thing at first, and for many years it stayed that way. Because the results of this really weren't seen until 2006. Why 2006? Why was this such a large time span till we seen the problems? That's because in 2006, we experienced the Great Recession. The Harvard Business School found that during this time, unemployed college grads were taking jobs that they were overqualified for. Baristas with bachelor degrees became popular, causing a scenario Till von Wachter, professor of economics at the University of California in Los Angeles, called scarring, where these unlucky recent college grads had lower earnings for at least 10 years after this point in their career. Coming with that was higher rates of divorce, fewer children, poorer health, and higher mortality for lung, liver, heart disease, turning into less productive and dissatisfied people down the line. This is the exact moment where degrees stopped helping and started hurting. Employers were increasingly inflating the educational requirements for jobs usually held by high school grads. Also, automated hiring tools such as LinkedIn exploded during this time period, increasing a scenario where anyone could apply for a job anywhere in America, making it harder for employers to shift through hundreds, if not thousands of applications, whereas the application process beforehand was face-to-face and within a certain area, making the process easier to track, causing a scenario in many cases where qualified candidates actually don't ever get the chance to apply. Harvard Business School found that in a typical middle skills job such as production worker supervisor, we found that 67% of job postings required a bachelor degree or higher, yet just 16% of workers already in that position held such a degree. The uptick in credentialing or degree inflation rested on the belief that these college-educated employees would be smarter, more productive, and more engaged than workers without a degree. With employers wanting to focus less on training entry-level workers and requiring bachelor degrees and more skills means that they invest less money into training, transferring that money into profit and their shareholders. But as more and more people obtained bachelor degrees to play the game of entry-level work, the less valuable these degrees became. Therefore, meaning the requirements that employers were putting on entry-level work became less valuable as well. And this is where entry-level jobs completely break down. 61% of entry-level jobs require 3+ years of experience. And this creates a question that nobody has really answered. How do you get experience if all entry-level work requires experience? Employers are preferring candidates that are older that have experience over recent college grads that are looking to get into the field, creating an unhealthy employee situation that Financial Times calls a diamond company structure, where you have few at the top, then a lot of people in the middle with middle-level jobs, and then few at the entry-level position, compared to a healthy company structure where the shape of it is a triangle with a lot of entry-level jobs, middle jobs in the middle, and few jobs at the top. And once that bottom layer disappears, the entire system becomes harder to enter. If entry-level roles evaporate, those lacking elite networks or privileged backgrounds will face even steeper barriers to finding their footing in the workplace, which means opportunity doesn't disappear evenly. It concentrates. So we're basically just seeing the same thing that happened to high school grads happen to bachelor degree grads. But it's worse because you can't get actual experience in the workforce with a bachelor degree. History isn't just repeating, it's compounding. Harvard Business Review reports that only 28% of talent acquisition leaders today report that internal candidates are an important source of people to fill vacancies, presumably because of less internal development and fewer clear career ladders, meaning companies aren't building talent anymore. They're sourcing it. The Census Bureau of Labor Statistics data shows that 95% of hiring is done to fill existing positions. Most of those vacancies are caused by voluntary turnover. LinkedIn data indicates that the most common reason employees consider a position elsewhere is career advancement, which is surely related to employers not promoting to fill vacancies. So the system is feeding on itself. People leave to grow because they can't grow where they are. And this is causing entry-level roles to be more like early career roles, unveiling the mindset of employers that there should be entry-level positions, just not at my company. Because hiring recent college grads comes with risk. You don't know if that individual is going to be a good hire or not. So why spend the money on them when you can just get somebody with the experience already that is less risky? So you can take that money and give it to your shareholders for profit. And so entry-level hiring becomes less about potential and more about proof. The New York Times reports that the appetite for hiring is definitely decreasing. Fewer employers attend school spring career fairs because they are being more conservative with their recruiting. And getting a late start can slow down workers' careers for decades. The Center of American Progress found that young adults who experience 6 months of unemployment at age 22 can expect to earn approximately $22,000 less over the next decade. And that is where short-term problems turn into long-term consequences. But there is something that will disproportionately affect entry-level jobs to the point of non-existence: AI. A survey conducted by the New York Times of over 3,000 executives on LinkedIn at the vice president level or higher, 63% of those individuals said that AI will eventually take on some of the mundane tasks currently allocated to their entry-level employees. So this really isn't a future problem. It's already expected by the elites in these companies. Firms are making rapid progress towards automating entry-level work, and that AI companies are racing to build virtual workers that can replace junior employees at a fraction of the cost. Meaning the question that we should be asking isn't if AI is going to replace jobs, it's when. The positions that are most likely to be effective first are positions that are more repetitive. And the more repetitive positions are entry-level positions because you are learning the skill, you're learning the work, you're learning how to progress in this company. So your work is going to be more repetitive. That is what AI is targeting. And so if AI is able to do the task of entry-level work at half the cost, then why not use it? We're already on the path of shareholder value, so why not just improve shareholder value at the cost of entry-level positions? They can get those positions elsewhere, right? Well, if everybody's doing the same thing, where are those positions going to be at? How are recent college grads going to actually enter the workforce? They're not. And it'll be even worse for generations after Gen Z. So how exactly are individuals supposed to get into the workforce if there are no jobs to really get a foot in the door? This is the system that we have created. And the system is flawed, all because companies want more money. They want more profit. They want their stock to go higher so they can make more money. All because of greed at the cost of entry-level positions for kids who are just trying to get their foot into the door, to prove themselves. That is what all this is for. All just for a little bit more money.